Good evening, everyone. Let me just check my sound is coming through fine. I think it is, so we should be good to go. As I said, good evening. My name is James. I'm a PE teacher. I own a company called The Everlearner Limited. We run a website called theeverlearner.com. On the chat this evening, we also have Marta, who is my business partner and actually my home partner, for want of a better phrase. I don't know how to call that when we happen not to be married. So what word do you use these days? Marta, how are you? Marta, you did make me laugh a minute ago when the camera came on and you were picking your nose.
I wasn't picking my nose. I may have scratching or just checking that my nose ring was the right way around. But no, I wasn't. I'm pretty sure I was not picking my nose. That doesn't mean I never pick my nose. I do like the other person. Not on that particular occasion.
You hipsters with the nose rings. Hey, there you go. One of those things. But Marta, if you could keep an eye on the chat tonight, that would be great. I'd much appreciated. I've populated the links document as well. So if you could have that available, that would be great. To everyone else, welcome. A couple of shout outs in there. Anna Harvey's here this evening. We just scroll down a little bit. Jill Rastall, Lucy Ellis, Tasha Reeves. Jill Rastall, actually, I was thinking you've done loads of these sessions, Jill, actually from memory. So thank you. Really appreciate that. I should say as well that after this evening, at sometime tomorrow, if not Friday, we'll be actually sending out certificates for all of the sessions that people have done. Luke Neville's with us this evening. Did I mention Jess Mudge amongst others? Okay, so guys, thank you so much for being here. I realize that in July, at the end of a tired year, for you guys to give up a Wednesday evening is really something. So thank you. I appreciate you doing it. Hopefully it's worthwhile for you. So what gives me the right to suggest to you that I might be able to help you with biomechanics? Well, there's a couple of things I want to point out before we get into like a really content heavy session. Okay, so we're going to go through a lot of material tonight. I'm expecting to finish around about 22, quarter two. We'll be done by then. Okay, now there's two things I want you to be aware of that really had a significant impact in the middle part of my career. So I've been a PE teacher 20 years. In the middle of that, I did 10 years as a head of PE in a sixth form college. And in that sixth form college, we basically let me give the context. The sixth form college was, at the time, I don't know if it still is, but at the time we had the biggest A-level PE cohort anywhere in the world. Okay, so Farm Sixth Form College it was, and we had approximately 300 students a year doing A-level PE across year 12 and year 13. So within that context, of course, you get a sort of sharpness across certain processes. And there's two things that I think we did particularly well. One of them, which you probably know a bit about my work, not least from doing stuff like this, is we introduced the use of supporting video tutorial work with students, especially flipped and blended learning, sort of changing the seat time of learning within the classroom. That was really, really important. But the one I want to focus on tonight is that we basically made all students do what used to be the optional biomechanics units of the A-level. So this is sort of pre the change specification in 2016, where biomechanics was something you could choose to do. And in almost every case, everyone chose not to because it was seen as hard. And what we found in that situation, we were lucky, we had people with a mechanics background like myself. Graham Thompson was also in that team as well. Some of you may know Graham from textbooks, used to write a lot of textbooks. So we led that, and we basically decided to implement biomechanics across that huge cohort. And we made it almost into like an art form, like something that really gave us a structural advantage. So while lots of centers were doing, say, the sports psychology and the historical unit on that OCR course, and kind of the sports psychology was kind of challenging and tricky and very wordy, we were getting just spectacular results out of students doing this biomechanics unit, lots of calculations, lots of drawing, lots of vector illustrations, lots of graph drawing. And it seems counterintuitive because I think we tend to think about it as the harder bit, but actually it's so conceptual that once you grasp it, as long as you remember the concept, the kids should do really, really well. So I really recommend it. Now, of course, today we're in a slightly different situation. Any GCSE course, all of the A-levels, the mechanical movement aspect of it is compulsory, and the A-level stuff, it's significant. I'm not going to be specific to a particular course tonight, but obviously all of us as PE teachers, if we're teaching in the classroom, need to be thinking about these skills. So for me, that's why I think what I am going to say to you this evening in a very firm way, by the way, I am not going to pull any punches tonight. I really am going to tell you what I think you should do, which, forgive me, I hope it comes across okay. I'm not trying to be sort of forceful or arrogant, but I think I'm really confident that this stuff can work, okay? So I am literally going to say, this is what I think you should do. Obviously, I don't know what you're doing already. Take that into account. Take me with a pinch of salt. Take all of it with a pinch of salt. Reject me if you want. I understand, no problem. But that is how I'm going to approach it this afternoon or this evening, I should say. So with that in mind, I want to bring your attention, as always, to a bit of canvas. Here we are, a bit of canvas. Let's have a look at this here. I basically initially want to introduce you to a set of rules and resources that I think you guys should implement in your classrooms when teaching biomechanics. And I would really, really, really take this seriously. Expect your students to do this. They need a sharp tip pencil with them. They need different pens. I've suggested blue, black, red, green, pink, obviously, whatever combination might work. They need to have a ruler. They need to measure. They need to always start with a formula. Make these things fundamental in the biomechanics classroom. If they're calculating, always show workings. And this one is so important, particularly in biomechanics, because it is conceptual. Triple checking answers, okay? Biomechanics is one of those things where if you start on the wrong track, you misinterpret the question, you get the first principle wrong, you're gonna keep going wrong. So triple checking for silly mistakes is something students should really, really, really get into the habit of. That makes this stuff the core requirement of what the student should have with them. Now, I actually want to take that a little bit further. If I just switch my focus just 1 second to this document here, just bear with me, guys. Sorry, as I switch my share to this document. If I take you to this document here, which by the way is an 80-page resource pack on biomechanics, which I'll talk to you about later on. But if I take you to this, which is going to have tons of ideas, in the middle of this document, you'll see in here, for example, what you will need, okay? So we've got things like general items, scissors, glue, pens, pencils, colors, Play-Doh, rules. We're talking about bringing this to life, making it meaningful. We're talking about doing it. This stuff's really, really, really important. We need this stuff in the classroom as a minimum for good biomechanics teaching, because you're going to construct things, make things, model things. You're going to experiment. You're going to produce practicals. And there's other stuff. I mean, you'll notice here on things like levers, which I'm going to touch on in a second, you're going to need a Newton meter. You're going to need a wooden ruler. You're going to need some weights. You're going to need like a little triangular wooden block. This is stuff that you can be implementing into your classroom or classrooms in preparation for getting this just right. I'll come back to some of those points in a second as we progress through this. So with that in mind, I want to suggest to you what I believe are the 5 fundamental behaviors of a successful biomechanics classroom. And I'm not trying to produce some magnificent 5 where it's like a tick list of an outstanding lesson. We don't have them anymore, do we? But you know what I mean? What I'm suggesting here is these are the fundamental components of what great biomechanics teaching would look like. The first one is not surprising. Students need brilliant instruction. In other words, we need our teaching teams. We need our own teaching. We need the tutorials the students are using to learn the material to be razor sharp. And I guess that's a little bit of why we're here this evening, right? Because we want to be as sharp as possible at delivering this stuff, at explaining this stuff. You guys will probably know from me. For me personally, that teaching also needs to be repeatable. Okay, a one-off teaching episode, I would argue in 2019 is questionable, but we need that teaching and that instruction to be repeatable. I'll come back to that point in a second. Secondly, we need practice, okay? Students need to practice these principles. So I'm going to suggest that they go in this building stakes mentality, they go from some kind of practice mode to some kind of test mode, probably during the lesson, possibly outside of it. Thirdly, students need to do it. And what I mean by this is they need to take part in practicals, which show this material for what it is, and they need to, if it's achievable, experiment. Don't be afraid of that. There's certain classic practicals and experiments in biomechanics teaching, the old 100-meter sprint, split times, things like that. But there's tons of possibilities of how you can set up practicals to emphasize, to bring to life. And I really want to stress that, bring to life. If we were back on our session on practice and review, or we were looking at interleaving particularly, we will be talking about things like flashbulb memories, making learning meaningful. Okay, and we do that in this context by bringing it to life, by using application, by making it practical. Fourthly, we have to provide our students with this opportunity to write it. And I'm going to say as a minimum, if we assume that writing it is in exam format just for a second, we need questions, we need mark schemes, and guys, please, please, please grab hold of, I'm sure you already do, the importance, cotton on to the significance of model answers. Okay, if in your classroom today you are not regularly working with model answers, I can pretty much guarantee you that if you did, you'd see significant changes in performance of your students. Model answers are essential. The conduit through which our students show they know things is through writing and, to a degree, especially biomechanics, drawing. Okay, so we have to give them aspirational vision of what that can look like and read like. And finally, we've got this fifth portion, which is review it. And again, those of you that have done the practice and retrieval stuff with me recently, you're not going to be shocked to hear me say that practice should be something like daily, weekly, and monthly. Okay, sorry, I should say the review. Daily, weekly, and monthly. And we've stressed that repeatedly in recent sessions. Can I just stress again, you may not be able to do daily GCSE or A-level PE review sessions because you're not seeing them every day. You may not within your homework policies. But what I'm saying is this is the ideal model. Can you get towards that? And one last point on review, do try where possible to interleave old and new learning. Why? Because as we've learned from Ebbinghaus and that forgetting curve and the forgetting cycle, we want to be returning to old learning interspersed with new learning so that what we've learned in the past does not go stale. So those to me, guys, are the 5 things that if you nail them are going to lead to really, really great experiences and great learning in biomechanics. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I don't think they're massively different if you take it into physiology, sociocultural. The specific skills, would you experiment so much in sociocultural? No, you probably interpret data, for example, more, things like that. You probably do more research-based work. But those principles are absolute fundamentals. Marta, what I'm going to ask you to do, if you can, I've mentioned practice and retrieval quite a bit on there. Could you please share with colleagues the practice and retrieval infographic that's on the links I've provided you, please?
Yes,
and guys,
do you want me to also, sorry, do you also want me to share the link to the webinar?
Yeah, that would be great. So
yeah.
That would be great. So if you could share 2 links. One is to the actual full session we did on practice and retrieval. That's generic. It doesn't relate to biomechanics specifically. And the second one, if you can relate that to the link, which is for the infographic. And guys, just to be clear on the infographic, what I'm going to share with you here, it's this document. Whoops, I think I've possibly not shared the right document with you. Bear with me a second. Let me see if I can do that better this time. The document that Marta's just putting in for you, I think I'm going to get it this time, hopefully, is this one here, okay? So it's this document here. It's a full infographic about how to achieve really sharp practice and retrieval. And I'm going to reference that repeatedly this afternoon or this evening, I should say. So that's in there. Have a look at that, and that is really significant as a backdrop for what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the session. Okay, so I think those are in, Marta. Okay, so cool. All right, so all that being said, I've just blown my own trumpets. I used to get these results and hundreds of A-level kids, blah, 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 blah. We want to get some great instruction into our students. So how do we actually go about doing that? Well, look, we're together for half an hour, 40 minutes now. I can't teach you the whole biomechanics all in one go, but we are going to do that in September and October if you're interested. I'll come back to that point in a second. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to perhaps just give you a couple of highlights of something we all need to teach. Okay, I'm assuming that everyone in this session is having to teach levers at some point. Okay, I'm assuming that's the case either in your GCSE or your A-level, your BTEC, sport and exercise science, whatever it happens to be. So a couple of reminders about levers. Let me just do a very quick session for you as if it was going to be some kind of exemplar. When we look at levers, be reminded that all a lever is, trying to get my angle just right. All a lever is it is a rigid bar. Okay, there it is. There's my rigid bar. In a human body, this is probably going to be a long bone. It's probably going to be a femur, a humerus, a tibia, something like that. We need to know that our rigid bar, it has an F. It has a fulcrum. It has to have that component. Secondly, it has to have some kind of load or resistance, something it's looking to move. And it has to have some kind of E, some kind of effort. So all of our levers have 4 components. They have an effort, they have a fulcrum, wrong orange. They have a load or a resistance, okay? So we have 4 components to each of these lever arms. Now, what we want to do then is to think, well, okay, how many types of levers are there? Because we can shufty this stuff about and we can change what these lever systems are all about. So let's have a look at that and let's straight away link that to specific practical examples. So this is where I get to sing to you folks. For 1, 2, 3, think FLE. For 1, 2, 3, think FLE. I'm trying to get that sort of flashbulb memory thing there, by the way, guys, singing, using the mnemonic at the start, that kind of thing. So what does that mean? It means that a first class lever has the fulcrum in the middle, which basically makes it this one. It means a second class lever has the load in the middle. We'll come back to it. It means a third class lever, of which is the majority, of very close to all in the human body, has the effort in the middle. So let's see if we can apply that. Let's then look at first class levers. We know they need 4 things. We know it needs a rigid bar. We know it needs a fulcrum. We know it needs an effort. And we know it needs a load. So let's see if we can figure out this first class lever. Well, I'm going to put the fulcrum in first. We know it's going to be in the middle. Why? Because for 1, 2, 3, think F in the middle, LE. So the fulcrum's in the middle. Beautiful. We are going to put our load, I mean, it's basically what I've just drawn, right? We're going to put our load over there on this end, and we are going to put our effort going downwards. And if you think about it, it has to go downwards on that end. Would you agree with me that that's a first class lever? We have our fulcrum in the middle. Now that's all well and good. We've got the concept. These levers, rigid bars with these components, they're producing rotational movement. What about examples of this? Where are these first class levers? Now we could be looking at the real world kind of, I don't know, building site examples, but instead of doing that, why don't we actually have a look at some from the human body? So here's a couple, and let's look at this first one. We have, in this example here, we have what we call, bear with me, we have what we call extension of the neck, okay? Extension of the neck. In other words, at this joint, which we also call the atlas and axis, which by the way is the top cervical vertebra and its articulation with the cranium itself, okay, we can clearly see here that we've got a rigid bar, we've got the fulcrum in the middle, which is literally the spine connecting with the head. We've got the effort pulling down from one end, which in this case would be the pulling action of the sternocleidomastoid. And here we've got the load, which is the weight of the head. The fulcrum is clearly in the middle. So if this volleyball player wants there to extend the neck and lift their chin upwards, how do they do that? They apply a torque to this first class lever. And I am gonna, it's introducing a different lesson, but I am gonna chuck in the word there, torque. I'll come back to that in a future lesson, a torque rather than a force. So we've also got a second example here. We have over here, we have elbow extension. Okay, now this is one that gets controversial for people. I've had numerous people saying to me, James, elbow extension is a third class lever. It's not, it's a first class lever. Elbow extension. Let's prove that point, okay? By the way, little health warning on this example. Not all exam boards, and certainly not at GCSE, include elbow extension because people find it really confusing for some reason. It's not, but just check if it's on your course, your specific course. So what do we have here? Well, this boxer is kind of throwing a left low jab, I suppose you would call that, and he is having to move the load of the weight of his arm and the glove. The fulcrum is here, and it is effectively the elbow joint. So what then is this effort? And I'm going to be really specific about this effort. It is the insertion of, I'll just put the TB, the tricep brachii. Now, the interesting thing about the tricep brachii is it actually inserts on the end of the ulna. It's a feature of the ulna called the olecranon. I'm not suggesting you tell students that, but the olecranon is the very point of the elbow, right on the outside edge of the elbow. In fact, the insertion of this muscle is literally onto that point, okay? So it literally inserts onto that point. So as a result, we've got the fulcrum in the middle. And what's interesting about that, and something you could develop with the students, well, that fulcrum is basically over here, rather than being in the middle, it's over near the effort arm, and you could start to introduce what the possible impact of that could actually be. It's quite an interesting one, okay? So let's move on. We've got our second class lever, okay? With our second class lever, we know for 1, 2, 3, think FLE, that means that we have to have the load in the middle. So, okay, let's put it there. There's our load. Beautiful. We've got to have our fulcrum outside of the load. So let's put our fulcrum here. So I haven't drawn that very well, never mind. Let's put our fulcrum there. And let's put our effort, let's put it here. Let's put our effort here. There's our effort. Okay. Now, this lever is fascinating. There is one example and one example only in the human body, and we use it when we raise our body weight away from the ground or we start to jump. What do we mean by that? Well, have a look at this example. Here we go. Exactly as we've just drawn. What do we have here? We have the fulcrum. We have the fulcrum, which is the contact point between the ball of the foot and the floor. There's our fulcrum. We have our load. The load is literally the weight of the body acting down through the tibia, if you want to be really, really specific. And we have our effort, which, if we want to get super specific, is the insertion of the gastrocnemius via the Achilles tendon here on the calcaneus. So when this muscle pulls up, by applying a torque to this lever arm, remember torque I mentioned before, by applying a torque to this lever arm, what's going to happen is it's going to cause plantar flexion. Now, the point I would want to be stressing here, I might even interleave this teaching, is we really want to stress here that there is a big difference now between the position, or there's a long distance now between the position of the effort and the fulcrum. And you could even tell them, if you wanted, that this is what we call an effort arm. And you just leave it there maybe, or you could explain how that impacts on mechanical advantage. But the point is we're highlighting that point. Let's look at the third class. Here's our third. We know it's number 3. We know that for 1, 2, 3, think FLE. The effort has to be in the middle. So let's put it in the middle. This time though, middle's going to be here, more of which in a second. There's effort. This time, fulcrum's going to be here. And this time, we're going to have the load somewhere over there. Okay, somewhere over there. Okay, so what we've got is we've got a third class lever because we've got the effort in the middle, but I've kind of drawn it near the fulcrum. That's kind of interesting. And guys, this is literally how the vast majority of levers and ultimately joints operate in the human body. So it's critical that students understand this, whether it's for their exam or their more general understanding of mechanical principles and a movement. Okay, so let's bring some examples in of some third class levers. I'm going to put 2. One of them is like the classic, as it were. Let's look at the classic. Look here, we've got the fulcrum is the elbow joint here. So there's our elbow joint. The load is the weight of the dumbbell, and also the weight of the forearm actually is the load that's being shifted. But the torque is applied this time, let me be really specific, by the insertion, that's an E, the insertion of the bicep brachii, the BB. And this time the insertion of the bicep brachii is here on the radius, and it's in between the hand and the elbow joint. So this time the effort is in the middle, which makes this a third class lever. So again, if you are going to talk about elbow extension, there's a really great opportunity to interleave those 2 examples and teach that comparatively, okay? Because they are different. Remember, the insertion point of the tricep brachii is over here, remember. So we've got our third class lever, in this case of what you would call, of course, elbow flexion. Okay, elbow flexion. I won't bother too much with this example here, but we've got the same sort of notion. Knee flexion, we have our fulcrum, which is the knee over there. We have the load, which is the weight of the leg and the foot. And we have the effort, which is here. And this is the insertion of, in this case, the 3 hamstring muscles, the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and biceps femoris, which is actually between the fulcrum, the knee, and the load, which is, it's ultimately the center of mass of the lower leg. But anyway, of the weight of the leg, let's put it that way, okay? So we've got here this time, again, a third class lever. Why? Because for 1, 2, 3, think FLE in the middle. And can I just repeat to you again that almost all human movement almost all human movement is via, it's an S, is via class 3 levers. Almost all. So you could even say, I mean, I don't know if you want to go the negative route, but you could even say to students, if in doubt, say class 3, because it's probably that one. But the point I want to make to you about that, guys, and in some ways I'm sort of drawing it in a little bit, but we have to be able to instruct our students. We have to be able to say to them, these are the ideas. This is how it works. Those details, like, I don't know, if you're a GCSE teacher and teaching levers, for example, that detail that, I don't know, the bicep brachii inserts onto the radius, is it essential? Are they going to go and write that? And he goes, maybe not. But I think for the teacher to have that background and underpinning is important, because it's what rationalizes this idea. The other point, I mean, are we ever going to tell the kids the word electronon for this point of the L? Well, no, probably not. But we want them to understand, if we are going to do that elbow extension example, we want them to understand why it's a first class lever. So I think that background understanding, guys, is absolutely essential. And we should be proud and desiring of trying to track it down and to get it if we don't have it already. I think I've been really lucky in my career. I got to really focus on theory teaching for a long time when I was a sixth form teacher. So I think that for me brought my level up on a whole array of things. And I think I'm really fortunate in that sense to have had that experience. If that's not necessarily going to be the case for everybody. So, how do we go about achieving that is an interesting question. So I'm going to pause there for a second, Marta. I did notice some sort of chats were coming in. You spelled, Marta, you said a private one, you spelled, that's one of my problem words. Does anyone else have their problem spelling? Do you ever have that, Marta? I have some real problem spelling, right? Neck, I don't know why I do that. I always spell it with a K. I know it's N-E-C-K, it's ridiculous. I'll tell you another one that's really embarrassing.
I think you probably got a bit of contamination with connects, the game, the toy. It probably.
I don't think it's that. I think it's from knee.
Possibly. It's sort of the same thing, isn't it? Neck, knee was a difference. Oh,
that was always my favourite word in German. German was my favourite word. Knie. Anyway, that's another story. So thanks for pointing that. That's great. I have other problem words. Like every time I write the word tomorrow, I have to check my double letters, even though I know it's single M double R. I just have to always consciously check. But anyway, there you go. Right, the point I want to get to here, guys, is how do you get to know this stuff in a way that you can confidently go out and teach it? Can I just quickly share with you, and we're going to point this out to you later on. Marta, I tell you what, if you could do it, Marta, could you share with everyone the link to the blog post for the 2019 September Teaching Biomechanics course?
Sure.
It should be the very last link I sent you. So guys, if you have a look at what Marta's going to post into the chat here, this is an offer that we're putting out to all of you, is to spend 6 sessions with us in September and October, completely free, by the way, that we're literally going to run through 6 sessions of how to explain these different ideas to students. So I think the first one's all to do with levers, planes, axes. I think the second one's to do with force and motion. Third one, I think, is vector illustration. I mean, I'm actually going to open it myself as well. Go and have a look at that Teaching Biomechanics course 2019. Like I said, the live shows are utterly free, okay? So you can go and do that. Now, what I would say about that is we are only going to accept participation by 50 schools. The fact that we make that for free means, and we're basically going to put on 6 hours worth of sessions. We can only make that free if we limit the number of people that take it, because of course let's say we take 50 departments on, that brings people ask questions basically. So in the following days, you've got to be careful that if you give it out for free, that you're not spending all of your time when you're meant to be productive answering questions all the time, which I quite enjoy doing, but obviously just from a free model, it doesn't work very well. So that's why. So if you want to get you and your team on that, fill that form out. The 6 sessions are there. We're running them. I can't remember the first date now, but it's middle of September through to towards the end of October, and they're on Mondays. Okay, so have a look at that, and we're literally going to go through everything. I'm literally going to teach you like the whole A-level biomechanics course, and probably a little bit more above actually. But anyway, so that's there. Go and have a look at that. Get yourselves on it. It can be for you and your teams also. There is a premium version of it as well, which is where we give you all the resources and we give you recordings as well. But it's there, and you can just take the free ones, and that's absolutely fine. Okay, now with that in mind, let's assume that we've taught levers to our kids. It's gone brilliantly. they've grasped it, we're really happy with our delivery, we've used a beautiful PowerPoint, or we've written on the whiteboard, or we've sat with them and taught them through it, whatever, or they've watched one of my tutorials, or whatever it happens to be, okay? What do we do now? Well, as we said before, we have to practice it, okay? So numerous ways to practice. I'm going to show you 2. The first one, let's go and be Draco Malfoy, our phantom student, quite literally, okay? So Draco here, he is studying OCR, in this case, OCR Linear GCE PE Biomechanics, A-level Biomechanics, basically. And he can go to his levers lesson, and he can go and watch the tutorial and watch me teach him. That's absolutely fine. But he's going to go and do practice. Bang. He goes into practice here. No pressure. Take your time. Use your notes. Learning, not testing. Here we go. Draco's in. We get a question. No time limit. Our notes that we've made on the video tutorial, if I've made loads, are available to us on the right-hand side. Look at this image of the foot. If the foot moves through plantar flexion, which lever class is in operation? Well, we should know. It's second class. Bang. I'm practicing. This one, we've seen this image before in our teaching. What lever is that? We could read the whole thing. Atlas, notice Martin, neck spelled correctly. There you go. I can do it right sometimes. First class lever. There we go. Put my answer in. Get my feedback. I'll just do a couple more. What type of lever is this? Effort's in the middle. It's got to be a third class lever. Anyway, the student can carry on like this. But what I want to show you is that I, the teacher, have set Draco an assignment. Have a look at this. He's got 2 hours left. Imagine that he's learned levers with me earlier today in class. He's got 2 hours left, and I've set him this task, daily review of levers after lesson. So it says here, 6-question quiz. Repeat until you score 6 out of 6. If you're stuck, go back to practice mode, building stakes. You can do it. Go on, Draco. Now, it turns out I've already done it because I did this webinar earlier as well at 4 o'clock. Nevertheless, let's go and retake it. So what have we got here? Let's see if we can get 6 questions right. So we've got this image. Right, so what have we got here? Weight of the body is the load. Insertion of the gastrocnemius via the Achilles tendon is the effort. The contact point of the foot and the floor is the fulcrum. Bang. There's our feedback. Let's keep going. Complete the statement. Levers that can move heavy loads with relatively little effort operate at mechanical. I didn't teach you this bit actually, but they're at mechanical advantage. There's my answers. Which one's this one? What type of lever of this? Fulcrum in the middle. First class lever. You get the idea. We're practicing, right, guys? I've got time limit, by the way. Got the time limit too. Which lever formation operates at mechanical advantage? It's a class 2. And let's do 2 more. This one, I showed you, so I had to take my shirt off for this one, guys. The elbow joint is the fulcrum. The insertion of the bicep is the effort. The load is the dumbbell. There's my answer. Last question. What is distance X? I didn't actually teach you this, but this is the load arm. Let's check. Yep, that's the load arm. Bang. I have just done a really sharp experience of practicing that, okay? I can go back to the course and go and study something else, but I've done a really sharp experience of practicing that, guys. Look, we can practice on paper. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? I'm going to show you a couple of examples of that now. Practice on paper, by all means do it. But folks, really, we need to, and I'm sure many of you are, we need to start switching on to what computers can do for us. Okay, so computers that can keep generating questions, sending them to our students answering them with beautiful graphics, time limits, that kind of thing. And then when they hit submit, they get really sharp feedback. That is a great way of ingraining that learning. Okay, a great way of ingraining that learning. So one model of quick practice. Let's look at another. Let's go to the canvas. Let's assume that I'm not going to be using a computer for a second. Well, what am I going to do? Well, I'm likely to ask the students to do some kind of worksheet. Look, here's a very simple one. What kind of levers are these? And our students are going to go through this and they're going to go, right, that's a first, that is a third, that is a second, that is a first, that is a third, that is, I hope we got them right, that is a second. Look, it's quick practice and our students can do it super quick. We could extend that by asking them to give examples from the body. Where might they go next with that? Okay, well, let's give them something slightly harder. What about this one? It's a second worksheet. What do we want them to do here? Well, it's really simple. We want them to take their ruler that we mentioned earlier that they've got to have, and on this example here, on this example here, we want them to draw their lever bar. So there's the lever bar. They've got their fulcrum, which is the neck. Okay, I'm not using very good colors for this. We've got the fulcrum there. We've got the we've got the load, which is the weight of the head, which is there. And we've got the effort. We've got the effort pulling this down. We've got the effort there, which is that sternocleidomastoid we mentioned earlier. I've not made that look very pretty on there, especially after I said you have to do it with colors and things earlier on, goodness me. But the point is your students can go through those examples and have a good look at those things, okay? Go through those. So they can practice that. Now, the problem with paper-based practice is marking. You know, ultimately, it's not going to take long on these, but you have to check this or have these checked. Just remember that all of these can be done electronically. The drawing skill is slightly different. That needs to be done, obviously, with a pencil and a ruler and what have you. But students need to practice. I can't emphasize it enough. It's not a surprise to anybody, but we do that. Where might we go next? Well, I said earlier, let me go back to where I just was. I said earlier, right, fine. Okay, so let's just go to here. Let's just say we've had brilliant instruction. We've practiced it online and done some worksheets. For example, we now need to do it. Okay, they need to live this. Okay, it doesn't have to be in this order, by the way. But look, here's my practical. I'm going to set this up for the students in the classroom, and they're going to undertake it. Okay, I'm not going to go through the whole practical, but look, what you've got here is you've got a Newton meter. Here you've got a weight. And here they've got to readjust the positioning of everything. Here's a block that the students are using as the fulcrum. They've got to readjust and move things, and they've got to start answering these questions based on what they found. Okay, so it takes them through that entire practical. They need those experiences. Okay, so we've now got to a point where we've taught, we've practiced, we've made it come to life. That has to be part of this. Before I get onto this writing bit, I'm just going to pause. I realize there's a couple of messages coming through. I don't know if they're just from Marta, but I'll just pause there.
No, they're not just from me, no. Natasha's asking whether you will be covering anything on planes this evening.
Not tonight, no, but it's in the first session on the first one. Guys, you've got to bear in mind that, you know, I'm with you 45 minutes. I can't possibly go over the whole biomechanics course, but we will do exactly that in September. You guys sign up to that. I'll go, how can I word? I want to be really careful with what I say here on planes. Like, I think it's something that is really feared in teaching. It really doesn't need to be that stuff, but we'll go through that on, we'll go through that when we do that first session in September. My suggestion, teaching it at the moment though, however, I booked on, all right, cool. So book on that. I'm more than happy, by the way, just to have a chat with you guys, and you know, if you want some help in the meantime. I mean, what I would say to you guys is that all of the resources that I'm showing you at the moment, so all the resources I've just talked about, all of the resources are from this pack here. Okay, what am I doing? Are from this pack here. All right, so we've got this resource pack, which I won't show you the whole thing. But in here is everything you could possibly need to teach. If I just scoot down all the way down to planes and axes, guys, just prepare yourselves for axes, because you guys all know every exam board's different, right, for axes. So the planes should be down here somewhere. If I haven't, I must have missed it. But planes is in here somewhere if I try and find it. Here we go, look. So here's the note sheets on planes that we use for the teaching. Above here's a practical on planes that just requires literally just the corner of a room. Here, we've got a worksheet on planes, and then obviously we're up into axes above that. Obviously, if you want me to go over some of those things with you, I can do, but I'm just not planning to do that this evening. But we are doing that in September, so we'll do that. That resource pack, by the way, guys, this is one of the premium features of that thing that we're not doing for free in September. If you want this, I'm afraid this one is to buy. I'm sorry it's like that, but there's no way around that. I'm afraid it's just how it is. We just have to. I'm afraid. Sorry, I always feel guilty with charging money, but nothing I can do. So yeah, so we'll come back to that. Now, I want to make a real plea to you guys. Okay, one of the things that for me made the biggest difference when I was teaching those A-level groups, and by the way, it's not just an A-level thing. Likewise with GCSE students, was how you get students to write things. And I've sort of got what I would want my students to be armed with. I will show you specific examples. This here is an example of something that students would have with them all the time. And I will show you examples inside, but in here is just question after question after question after question. You get the idea, question after question after question after question. That goes with the student all the time. So the tendency for once something is practiced and someone's got good at something to then go and do some exam writing is really high. That should be continuous. Okay, and I would say that is the same in any subject, any topic. Okay, ultimately, how do students represent their knowledge? They write things or draw things down in an exam. They should be doing it a lot. But as reference documents in the classroom, it's essential to have the equivalent document, and you guys know this, where it's got all the marks, it's got all of how you mark things all in there. It needs to be ready and available so that when students attempt a piece of writing, they can very accurately, or you alongside them, can very accurately determine the quality of that. So exam papers, high quality, mark schemes, high quality, no surprise there. This is the one, though, I think people miss. And I cannot emphasize how important this is, okay? So in here, this is the same booklet that I showed you right at the start. The only difference is that every question has a model answer, okay? Every question has a model answer. If we don't do that, if we don't provide that, then our students may not have the aspirational vision of what really good writing might look like, really good drawing might look like. So I cannot emphasize enough that that is a critical part of learning experiences in classrooms. Guys, I never know how to strike. So if you're thinking, okay, fine, James, but how do I find the time? Well, I've got a couple of answers to that, okay? And some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. So the best advice I ever got from a manager, I don't know if you find this helpful or you might just find it annoying. The best advice I ever got from a manager, actually the manager didn't like that much, but he gave me this little nugget. I said to him this question, how do you find the time to do the things that matter? And he said the key art to being a brilliant manager is utter neglect of what doesn't matter. And I thought that was a really interesting point. So if you're going to put time into writing model answers, you've got to find that time by cutting out something that doesn't ultimately matter as much. That is the answer. Now, I can't tell Lucy Ellis or Jill Russ, I can't tell you what that is for you, but that is the principle. The other thing, guys, is find a classroom model, and we, of course, advocate our classroom model, where you have got tons of time in the classroom to do these kinds of processes. And if you're interested in that, obviously, I'll happily talk to you guys about that. But if you want to Google the Everlearner Classroom and have a look at our material on that, I mean, it's the only classroom format that I would teach a biomechanics lesson in. Then by all means, have a look. Or if you want to chat to us about that, then do that. Okay. Now, what I want to do quickly, we are rapidly running out of time. What I want to do quickly is I want to bring you down to here, where you just go past here. And I just want to show you, just reinforce that point, guys, just reinforce that point. Students need to have that exam question where they're going to, ultimately they're going to read the question. They're going to realize it's an illustrate and evaluate question. And they're going to draw something. They're going to draw some lever. They're going to draw some lever, whatever it happens to be. They're going to write something down on here, and they're going to have a go at this principle, okay? What I want to stress to you guys, though, is that point I just made. They have to have availability of a really robust and high-quality mark scheme. And let me be clear, a lot of the exam board examples are not that. Some are, but this one is really aimed at causing learning, okay? It's really aimed at causing learning. It not only brings about the marks that would be picked up, but it also emphasizes the skill. And finally, as I said to you before, we've got to provide those students with a model answer. Well, I'll rein that in got to, you know what I mean? In an ideal scenario, we should provide students a model answer. I cannot emphasize that enough. I really believe this point, folks. I mean, I don't know if I can base this in literature more than in my own experiences, really, but like creating an aspiration, a vision. I mean, I think we all know that like creating like a high vision and standard for our students is a really good thing to do, but how do you actually do that? I think one of the ways is just show them what brilliant looks like. Just show them what magnificent looks like, okay? And if they see it, they're more likely to attain it, okay? So that, for me, in those model answers, it's a very simple example of it. But if they don't have that aspirational view of what their writing could be like in 6, 8, 2 months, 2 years' time, whatever it happens to be, then they don't know what they're trying to reach. They don't know what they're working towards. A couple of very last points from me. I said to you guys a moment ago, let's assume now, where is it? Let's assume now that the students have been taught it, practiced it through building stakes, they've experimented it, they've written it, probably marked it, rewritten it, and looked at model answers. We now want review. And guys, can I stress again, daily, weekly, monthly is the ideal. You might not be able to get to the ideal, but that's the scenario we want to try and replicate. Interleaving old and new learning. So how might we do that? Well, in my opinion, by far, by a mile, the best way to do that is using the Everlearner. Okay, so come here. This is Draco Malfoy. Let's just have a look at the assignments Draco's got. This first assignment you've seen him do. It's that one where he's doing just the 6 questions. So I won't show you that again. But notice what opens at the end of this week. A weekly review interleaved on biomechanics. What is it? This is what he's going to be asked to do. It's going to open in one day, a few days after he's learned that lever stuff. Weekly review. 15 questions, 80% passing standard. Repeat until you achieve that standard. Questions will cover all of this interleave material, some of which is new, some of which is older. So we're preventing Ebbinghouse's forgetting curve from taking place. We are promoting the remembering cycle, the use it or lose it principle. We just go back to the assignments just for 1 second. Again, we've automated an assignment here. This one is going to open in 22 days. So it's going to be like 3 weeks after the levers lesson. So just think about this second. 3 weeks after Draco studies levers, perhaps with me in the classroom, what are we asking him to do? Automated. I don't have to make him do this. It's gonna, the site's going to do this for him. Levers restudy. This is your monthly review for levers. Restudy the levers tutorial and make thorough notes online. Remember, you can use practice mode if you're unsure about any of the ideas. So just be clear on that, guys. I mean, this isn't open yet, but what he's going to get to do, he's going to get to go to this tutorial here. Let me just go to this one. He's going to get to go to this tutorial here. And this tutorial is going to teach him
simple topic wrong, excuse me, on end.
As I did with you, this is going to teach him that principle again. So just think how lucky Draco is for a second.
Think for 1, 2, 3, think FL.
So just to be clear, he's gone into our classroom, yours, mine, whoever. He's gone in there. He's been taught brilliantly. He's practiced it. He's practicaled it. He's written it. He's reviewed it after a day. He's reviewed it after a week. And 3 weeks later, at the end of that month, what does he do? He goes back to a razor-sharp teaching episode and he relearns it again and makes online notes bookmarked against that tutorial. I mean, what do we think? What's the tendency that student's going to have to be able to learn, memorize, and use that material? For me, it's so high, it's so likely that he's going to learn, he's going to learn well, that the chances of success are just off the scale. And guys, I want to come back to what I said right at the start. That of what I've just shown you, that is why, and I always feel like these are anecdotal things. One year in a cohort of an entire A-level PE group, which was in our college, it was 20 odd kids in year 13. We had in that whole group, this is one of my classes, thankfully, we had one student who dropped 1 mark on that whole biomechanics section. And we were gutted because it was to that level. We honestly thought, like, you can get every kid to that standard by teaching them in that framework, that format, and that mentality. And I'm sorry if that comes across as cocky or arrogant. I'm just saying to you that that is what you can achieve. And for me, if I was ahead of PE right now, I would, especially if I was doing A-level or BTEC sport and exercise science, a bit less so in GCSE because there's not as much of it, but I would look at that and I would say, right, loads of centres are struggling with it. Let's make it an art form. Let's literally make it an art form. So for me, that's really important. So final things from me, but Marta, do throw any questions at me if you have them. But last thing I want to just stress to you guys, I don't know whether you guys have already gone onto this page yet and had a look, but let me just stress this opportunity for September, guys. Let me just stress this to you. here on the news and podcast link on the everlearner.com, we've got this Teaching Biomechanics course in 2019. These are the 6 sessions that we are going to do. And guys, really now, I mean, the way I'm going to run that is I'm literally going to teach you it. Okay. Now I am going to be saying, right, so say it like this to the kids, show the kids this at this point and those kind of things. But I am literally going to teach you as high level as I can biomechanics on all those 6 areas. Okay. And again, just to stress to you that it's free to attend those live shows. The things that unfortunately we have to make premium are the resource pack that we've produced, the recordings of that, they will be premium or they'll come in the premium fee. We're going to release all of our biomechanics images that we make for all of our questions so you can make resources with them. And then the other thing is all of the packs of questions, mark schemes, and model answers. They will be on that premium bit. And I know I don't need to apologize. I'm sorry that we have to charge for some things. I hope you realize we give up as much time as we humanly can to do as much as we humanly can freely. I utterly believe in freeness and the free offer. It's just that sometimes there's certain amounts of time and commitment that you just can't keep, you can't do long term for free and keep sustaining what you're doing. So it would be great on that basis if you could support us. But to be clear, the 6 live shows, they're free. Join in, milk us for it. What I would say though is we are genuinely only taking 50 schools. When we did this in 2018, I can't remember the number, nearly 200 schools applied. So and we will cut it off at 50 because it is that support request issue for us. If we do it for free and then you get a lot of follow-up support requests because people want to know extra bits and want to ask you stuff and that kind of thing, it's just we can't do that for hundreds of schools because it literally just becomes a full-time job. So just be aware of that. Don't miss out on that. Get yourself signed up. Okay. Lucia, sorry.
Right. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. There's one technical question from Lorna. She's asking, what is the program called that you use to present these webinars, please?
Oh, this one on here. This is Zoom, as in Zoom. So it's Zoom. So the webinar. Now, if you're interested in Zoom, obviously I have no association. Oh, sorry, do you mean Zoom or?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know whether she means Zoom, so for the actual webinar, or whether Lorna means the sketchbook, tablet,
well, I'll answer both. So Zoom is the webinar service, so just the broadcasting service. We use loads of like webinar stuff. We use Zoom, we use Skype, we use Hangouts, we use AppearIn, we use EverWebinar, we use YouTube Live. They all do different stuff. Right, they all do different stuff. Zoom is a nice one. This one for us, I mean, forgive me for what I'm about to tell you, but Zoom is a nice one for us because it's probably the best way for us to engage in both live calls that we do a lot with our demos of the Everlearner and also webinars. And it basically allows you to collect email addresses. So that's why we use that one just on the business side, just so you know. But there's loads of alternatives. If you're interested in the software that we use, that, you know, that I'm ultimately writing with the pen and with, like you'll see here, that's the media tablet. If I switch to Sketchbook, which is, I'm dragging it. If I switch to Sketchbook, you can see here that I can basically draw on this thing with my digital pen. And that's on an app called Sketchbook, which is by a company called Autodesk. It's actually a free piece of software. And it's a really nice way of having like a digital blackboard, I suppose you would say it that way. What I would say, I can't remember who asked that question. Was that from Lorna? What I'd say, Lorna, is if you're looking for software to solve certain things, the point I would make, having worked in sort of IT and education for a little while now, is if you can imagine it, it exists. So if you're not sure where to find it, Google search, speak to people like us, we'll probably be able to put you onto the right thing.
Also, finally, Lucy, she would like a bit more information. She didn't catch how much you're charging for the resource pack, and she says it looks great, and she would like to have more information on the resource pack.
Yeah, so I'm rubbish at selling stuff. So what we're going to sell alongside that course in September is we're going to provide the 8-page resource pack, all of the past papers, model answers, mark schemes, all of the images that we've ever produced in biomechanics, which are just phenomenal, by the way, for you to make your own resources, and all of the recordings of the live show, and that's 275. And that's for your whole team, but bear in mind, okay, so your whole team can take part and do that. So yeah, so that's what. And by the way, just to be clear on that, when we put that out in September, that effectively is a 50% fee. What I've just mentioned there. When we put it out in September, it's going to be much closer to about £400 to £500 to do that. So yeah, so yeah. Anyway, so that's what it is. yeah, let us know. I mean, we'd love to get you involved in that one. Good stuff. Any more things, Marta?
No, I think that's it, really.
Well, I'm going to quickly put my headphones back on. I'm going to punch the air because I'm not saying they're perfect, but I think this is my 12th webinar in about 18 working days. No, not that many, actually. 15 working days. Might not even be that many. So I'm kind of celebrating, because this is the last one for me for this summer. But we're really proud of what we do at the Everlearner. If you're a PE teacher and you haven't looked at the Everlearner and the everlearner.com, formerly My PE Exam, but don't think it's like My PE Exam. That's gone. It was all right, but it's gone. I mean, what we've got now is amazing. And if you're interested in that, come and talk to us about it and we'll show it to you, okay? Because we'll show it. And thanks, Lauren. I appreciate you saying that. What I would say about the webinars to you guys is, what I probably should do is I should probably make these some kind of, like professional, here's my slides, and I've prepared them really carefully. I just want you to know what I think, and I want you to know, I want it to be much more human than that, so I can speak to you and you. And by the way, I completely accept that not everyone will agree with what I'm saying. I understand that. I probably am, what's the word? I probably do sort of push the envelope and the boundaries a little bit, but that's who I am as a person. So rather than trying to kind of water that down and pretend to be someone else, I think it's probably best I'm just authentic about that and just tell you what I think. And I understand that it's not for everybody. I understand that you're going to sort of pinch the good bits that work for you. I have some extremely strong views about how we could develop our educational model and our educational system. Really strong views, and I am vehement about them. They're not ideological because they change and refine and gradually improve over time. But I'm a little weary right now at the quality of the conversation that our educational leaders are creating for us. And I kind of want, in my own little way, to just say what I think and provide a more aspirational view of what I think things can be like. So that's why I do it. Okay. Now, of course, there's a bit of a business to it because I am trying to lead you to certain things, but I hope I get the balance right. With that, but have a look at the everlearner.com. If you don't know if you're a PE teacher and don't know what it is, guys, you really need to have a look at it really now, because it's amazing. It really is amazing. And final thing on the Everlearner, by September, we've just launched GCSE Biology and Chemistry, as well as all the PE stuff: GCSE Biology and Chemistry, GCSE Geography, GCSE History, GCSE Computing, GCSE English Literature, GCSE Physics by September, and there might be something else, but I just can't remember. GCSE French, GCSE Spanish. And as I said, all the PE stuff. So if you want to get involved, trust me, we are going and it's going to be great. So come and get involved with the everlearner.com, and I would love to show you what that site does in more detail. It's worth it. Marta, thanks to you as well for doing all the chat these last few weeks. I really appreciate it. This session will be recorded and available, guys. I'll get that done tomorrow. And I wish you a brilliant evening. Thanks so much. Just shame about the football last night. I was literally screaming at the TV last night. Don't know how many of you watched it. I noticed we actually have I don't mean to separate on gender or anything like that, but we got a lot of, it's kind of interesting. We've got an overrepresentation of women in this evening. And it's quite interesting, actually, that you guys, because generally we get an overrepresentation of men. This evening we've got an overrepresentation of women, which is good. But I've loved that football, and I really like that how much that has changed people's views. I coach senior men's football, and I've noticed that they are suddenly really respecting the women's game. It's really good. It's really good to see. It's really good to hear. So it's brilliant last night. I was really disappointed. Myself and Georgina, our younger daughter, we were literally screaming at the TV last night. It was brilliant. Never mind. There you go. Guys, I will go. Have a great evening. Thanks again. Certificates will be with you imminently. Okay. Have a brilliant one. Have a great evening. Weekend on the way. End of term soon. Well done.